have always been so obsessed with the Resident Evil franchise. Even if the only Resident Evil games that I played before were the remake on the PS3 and the first episode of Revelations 2. So I decided, why not play the entire franchise now, starting with the game that started it all.
Resident Evil.
Resident Evil is a survival horror game released in 1996 where you can choose to play between Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine, members of STAR's Alpha team. The story is the same whichever character you choose to play as, with some minor differences such as the cutscenes and different supporting characters. Jill's basically the easy mode and Chris is the hard mode, as Jill gets a lockpick because she's the master of unlocking.
Here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Has 8 inventory slots and can get a hold of the grenade launcher, which is completely absent on Chris's campaign. While Chris's focuses more on the gameplay. He can take more damage, Rebecca can heal Chris, and you can even play as her in some parts of the game. He can also use the flamethrower in the cave area, though it's a pretty weak weapon and there's almost no point in using it. Chris does have a bit of a disadvantage compared to Jill. He only has 6 inventory slots, which leads to more backtracking and resource management. And he also gets to carry another key to open some of the doors and desks, which takes another space in his inventory.
Wow, what a mansion!
From creepy mansion to secret underground laboratories, there are a lot of locations waiting to be explored. And whenever you step into a room, a door animation would appear on the screen which heightens up the tension. This game is like the perfect B-horror experience. I just love the game's settings, especially the mansion area, as it makes for a very creepy and atmospheric game. And the Spencer Mansion is probably, if not the most iconic mansion in gaming. There are some disturbing files scattered around the mansion that gives a bit of a backstory on what had happened to the mansion itself and its residents before your arrival. And there are some puzzles for you to solve as well. The puzzles are not that challenging, with some requiring you to find keys to be able to access the next area. The only puzzle that took me a while to figure out was the P-joke puzzle, as I'm not really good at math. But once I figured it out, it felt kinda pretty satisfying. But then there's the dragon puzzle, specifically the one in the basement lab. It took me a while not because it's difficult, but because it is just way too slow. If you ever make a mistake, you must go back to the room that you came from and watch a loading animation, then return back down again and watch another loading animation, just so everything could reset. And I hate that whenever I try to use an item to do a puzzle, the game would tell me that I couldn't use that item yet, because I was 1 centimeter away from it. It is such a waste of time to go to your inventory and do it all over again. Hell, it might not even work the second or third time around. But what I do like about the puzzles though is the 3D item inspection. Every single item that you can pick up can be examined in 3D, with some of these items hiding something important inside them that can help you progress through the game. Now when it comes to visuals, it doesn't really hold up at all. The character models details will gradually decrease as you get farther away from the camera, and the pre-rendered backgrounds looks a bit unrecognizable, and newcomers might be turned off by this. When I was still planning on playing the series, I actually wanted to skip the first game as it just doesn't look good compared to the other PS1 RE games. Though it's a good thing I didn't skip it, as I would have never experienced this amazing game. And of course, it's not a Resident Evil video if you don't mention the voice acting.
Stop it! Don't open that door!
Whoa! What is it?
You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
The voice acting is just so bad that it actually made me chuckle quite a few times. And somehow the voice acting and the dialogue kept getting worse and worse as you progress through the game.
Chris? Stop it!
The game uses pre-rendered backgrounds for its location, so you can't really move the camera at all. But because of this limitation, it had managed to make me jump several times because I wasn't expecting a zombie to stand in the corner of the room. The first time this happened to me, I had to take a break from the game so that I could get over it. It's that effective. And to pair up with the fixed camera angles, the game uses tank controls to maintain the character's direction when the camera changes. This one's a bit of a debate among fans whether it's a good thing or not. Some think it's great and adds to the intensity, while some thinks it makes the game unplayable. Well, for me, I'm leaning more towards the former. Sure, it was a bit difficult to get used to at first, but after an hour into the game, I did manage to get the hang of it, so I don't really have any gripe about it. Ammo and health items are pretty scarce, so you must make each item count. The game only gives you enough ammo to be able to survive through the night, and for you to not gun down every single enemy that you encounter, making you think if you should shoot the zombie standing in your way or just walk past it, hoping that you won't get bitten. On top of this, you've also got to worry about ink ribbons, the item which is used to be able to save in the game. There are only a couple of these, so only save if you feel like you progressed long enough in the game. It can be a bit frustrating at times when you lose about 10 to 15 minutes worth of progress, but it's definitely better than not being able to save at all, because you've used all of them. There are various enemies that roam the hallways of the Spencer mansion, from slow-moving zombies to giant spiders. You are never going to be safe. Even if you might have some extra ammo on your inventory, it is much better to avoid combat entirely, as the enemies doesn't take any damage when they're in animation. Some of the bullets will just go through them, and if you engage, you might find that your ammo is now fewer than ever. But then, everything changes once the hunters finally appear. Hunters are strong and agile. If you're not careful, they could even cut your head clean. This is where you should put all of your extra shotgun shells to good use. The hunters are the most annoying enemies in the entire game. Not only are they fast and can avoid your attacks, but they can also easily corner and stun lock you until you die. They're even harder to kill than the game's actual bosses because of their unfair speed. It's not like you could walk past them either, as they're just so fat. Add that and the invincibility frames and you are gonna have a frustrating time. Encountering them was very intense at first, but they just kinda became an annoying enemy that just wouldn't stop. The game has multiple endings, which adds to the replayability of the game, and it's very fun to see all of the alternative cutscenes. I wish more games would do this. After finishing the game, it rewards the player with the most anime credit music ever, accompanied by some cheesy action scenes that would zoom in on the characters, which looks like it's ripped straight out of an 80s action movie. For this review, I've played the director's cut version of the game, which added 2 new difficulty modes, the training and advanced mode. Other changes include new costumes for the characters, different camera angles, and items and enemy placements. The handgun has also been replaced by a much more powerful weapon that now has a random chance of blowing up the zombies' heads. And the most important addition to this version, the auto-aim. Now, there is a bit of a misconception about the director's cut. Some might say that it should be avoided because it changed the game way too much. But what they don't tell you is that there are actually 2 versions of the director's cut. There's the original director's cut, which looks like this, which is the one that I played, and the DualShock version, the one that has the horrible rework soundtrack, most notably the infamous basement music. Resident Evil is a classic that should never be forgotten, not to mention it even started the genre that we know today as survival horror. Horror fan or not, this game is a must play for everybody.